A man named Johnny has a hobby of meeting lots of girls while posing as completely different people. It is not difficult for him to charm any girl. In one of them, his friend tells the story of Johnny's various adventures. He jokingly says who knows, maybe his wife would like to go on a date with him. During lunch, Dario asks why he shouldn't end his partying and choose the one, but their conversation is interrupted by a call. Johnny's mother left this world. He arrives at the cemetery as soon as possible and accidentally mixes up the coffins. But, even so, he manages to get to the right grave. He gets the keys to his mother's house. There he notices old family photos, but Olesya interrupts his thoughts. She lives in the apartment next door. Seeing him in a wheelchair, the girl offers her help if he needs anything, and Johnny is masterfully pretending to be an invalid. A new day is coming. He chastises his employees for the poor presentation of their new product. Julia suggests bringing in a couple of Olympians to advertise. A smile appears on Johnny's face because his client base is rich people, not disabled people who change shoes once in their lives and then fire the girl altogether. A little later, he asks the secretary to bring old things and returns to his mother's house to offer Olesya a cup of coffee. He learns Olesya's preferences, such as having fun with rich and healthy men. Perhaps his plan to pretend to be disabled is not as good as it seems. Because of this, he admits that he owns a large company. Olesya is speechless and invites her to her country house on the appointed day. He arrives at the right address and parks at a safe distance so that his car will not be noticed. A large family was waiting for him, including Olesya's sister Chiara, who was forced to use a wheelchair. He immediately guesses why he was invited. After dinner, Chiara talks about her hobbies. Johnny is clearly not interested, but he does his best to appear cultured. Upon returning to the city, he tells his friends about his adventure, and while Dario is interested in her character, others ask about her appearance. At this time, Olesya comes to Johnny's mother's house. The door is opened by his brother, who does not know about Johnny's invention. The girl sympathizes with her brother's disability. The man is shocked by what he has heard and accuses his brother of lying, but he avoids the conversation in every possible way. Johnny's leaving a note asking for a date tomorrow, but to his surprise, Chiara finds him on her own. Since there is no wheelchair in his office, he just sits on his desk. Chiara suggests going to a tournament for people with disabilities. Johnny immediately comes up with a story where his company started supporting people with disabilities. A couple of days later, the game starts. Johnny is surprised by Chiara's mastery of the racket, and at the end of the game, she invites him to lunch with her team. Everything is going as awkwardly as possible there. People ask a lot of questions about Johnny's disability, which is difficult for him to answer. Chiara is performing on stage tomorrow. This is the first time he liked classical music. Chiara wonders how he ended up in another city. Johnny pretends that he came here for work, but he met her by chance. The duo arrives at an expensive restaurant. Johnny wants to admit that he's been lying all this time, but he's too weak to do it. And then he accidentally presses a couple of buttons, and his electric wheelchair crashes into the table. The duo arrives at Chiara's hotel. After the kiss, Chiara asks to wait and not rush things. Upon returning home, Johnny wonders if the disabled have a show. Dario answers yes, but in Chiara's case, it all depends on the location of the injury. In the dead of night, Johnny invites Chiara to go out to dinner tomorrow, after which he arrives to meet the girl he met this morning. The sisters are talking to each other tomorrow. Chiara is glad that Johnny sees her as a full-fledged person and does not try to feel sorry for her. Dinner was waiting for her today at Johnny's house, which periodically crashes into its own furniture. During dinner, she wonders how Johnny got injured. He mentions a case like that of the actor Superman. But what's the problem? That the actor has paralyzed most of his body, which cannot be said about Johnny. Why is he changing his story? As for Chiara, she was in a car accident. The other passenger suffered minor damage, and her violin was only a couple of centimeters away and not even scratched. Johnny offers to dispel the atmosphere and fills the room with water with just one tap, saving the next show. In conclusion, she admits that she is paralyzed below the navel and did not feel anything, but only imagined everything in her head. Johnny says it's the same for him. When Anna falls asleep, he takes a selfie and shows the photo to his friends. After many days, Johnny's worldview begins to change. He asks to find an intern who offered to expand advertising for people with disabilities. And during a jog he makes an appointment, because he has a very important conversation. Chiara shows him her room. He notices the photos when Chiara could still walk. Johnny gets up, but as soon as she finishes the game, he sits down quickly. Chiara says he's getting better at moving around, and wonders what he wanted to say. But Johnny can't tell the truth and changes the subject. Kiara says that her boyfriend left her after the accident, and now she hates being cheated on. After such words, Johnny finally hesitates to tell the truth. Kiara asks him to introduce her to his friends. He has to enlist the help of Dario and Lucan. Dario believes that Johnny has fallen in love, which is why he needs to tell the truth. During dinner, Dario asks Johnny to start a conversation, and seeing that he's not going to do it, Dario starts talking. Johnny immediately spills the soup and the duo goes to the bathroom. For the rest of the day, Johnny pretends to be disabled, not knowing that his brother told Olesya the truth. When they meet, she punches Johnny and gives 2 days for a confession for her sister. Otherwise, she will do it. Johnny comes to his father, who leads the same lifestyle, but he is sorry that he was a bad husband. Johnny doesn't have to follow his path. Johnny is afraid of losing Kiara, as she doesn't like being lied to. Suddenly, a trip to a very famous church is announced from the stage. Holy water has healing powers there. And then the duet turns blue. What if Johnny pretends that the water has restored the ability to walk? At the same time, Olesya gently hints that Johnny is not the one who deserves Kira. Johnny immediately calls and offers to go to church. It turns out that she figured out long ago that Johnny can walk. A disabled person who has to use a wheelchair cannot constantly bump into furniture. She endured the lies because she felt loved. A couple of days later, the group arrives at the church. The priest asks Johnny to come inside. The man quickly realized that this was not an invalid. He shouldn't get up in front of other people. This will give people false faith, which is why Johnny leaves the cathedral sitting in a wheelchair. On the way back, Kiara rolls onto the road. Johnny notices this and saves the girl. Kiara plays along, shouting that a miracle has happened, and leaves with tears in her eyes. Johnny's world begins to crumble. He comes to his mother's grave, and he admits that he has found a girl whom he would like to introduce to her, but it is too late. Then he hires an intern and allows him to take the initiative in developing a new advertisement. For the Olympic parade, Johnny still wants to establish a relationship with Kiara, which is why he comes to their house. There was a grandmother inside who was sure why he wanted to meet Kiara. Johnny pretends to have fallen in love with her and promises to become the best version of himself. After such words, Grandma tells him where he can find her. Johnny stops the bus, but Kiara doesn't want to listen to him and asks him to go on. One day Johnny gets sick, but Kiara comes up to him. He asks her what she's doing in Rome. Kiara repeats his words as she met him by chance. The film ends with a scene of the duo celebrating Johnny's birthday with their families.